Ahoy there, my friends. Welcome to Star Wars Transmissions. Frickin' Andor, episode 5. What an episode. Frickin' ended that episode and was just like, man, I want to keep watching. The show was fantastic, or the episode, I should say, was fantastic. Wanted to jump right into episode 6. We're going to be diving into episode 5, breaking it down, discussing the ins and outs of the episode and all the cool stuff that I picked up on. Obviously, this is your friendly neighborhood spoiler warning. If you haven't watched episode 5 of Andor, get those booty cheeks out of here. What the hell are you doing? Go watch Andor, then come back and listen to me yammer on about Andor episode 5. Because it was a fun one, and I don't want you to miss out or get anything spoiled. What's going on, Bull Run? Welcome to the chat. And the episode begins with our boy Cassian, who at this point is being referred to as Clem. The crew that he's working with, they all know him as Clem. And we see Cassian here with Skeen. Cassian wakes up and all of his belongings are missing. He goes outside. We see our boy Skeen here, nipples popping. Skeen has taken all of Cassian's stuff. And he's telling Cassian, hey, Val told me I can go through your belongings. You sure don't have a lot. The few things that you do have, coupled with your messed up arm, probably got out of wherever you were very quickly. What's up with that? And of course, Cassian not playing into this. Skeen does not trust Cassian, which makes sense. They are days away from planning a heist that has, from what we can gather, been in the works for quite a while. We hear Luthen at the end of the episode talk about all the planning and preparation that went into this heist. So it makes sense that in just a handful of days, 2 days, a day's time, when a heist, this big heist, high-stake heist is going to be happening, Skeen is not trusting this dude who he does not know and is just showing up at the 11th hour. Makes it a lot of sense that Skeen would not be trusting Cassian here. So Bullrun says the episode was fine. I like the other episodes. This was fine, just felt a little short. I like this episode a lot because I felt like it did a really good job in terms of character building, which we're going to talk more about. It humanized these characters and their plight and the plight that, and the oppression, I should say, of the Empire. So I really liked it. I've really liked this series so far because the dialogue, the character building, the storytelling has been superb. And I thought this episode was a continuation of that. And I appreciated that we didn't just jump right into this heist that's going to be happening, that they've been planning, that it's Tony Gilroy and company is allowing the series to breathe, because this is a very high stake heist. Things are probably going to go wrong in this heist, setting in motion where the series is going to go as we get towards the latter portion or the second half of the season. So I appreciated that we didn't just jump right into the heist. And again, the tension that we're seeing between Skeen and Cassian makes a lot of sense. Skeen is right to not trust Cassian because, again, he just met this dude. His life is on the line here. So him not trusting Cassian makes a lot of sense. And Skeen tells Cassian, hey, I noticed you looking at my tattoos. And clearly you know what these mean when the other folks do not. So let's talk about these tattoos, because I have some theories on these tattoos and what they could mean. So we learn that during this conversation, we hear Skeen and Cassian state that these tattoos, this one here, is a reference to something called Cratehead. I'm not 100% sure what Cratehead is referring to. My thought is that Cratehead is a reference to an Imperial prison facility. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at that tattoo, looks like it's a barcode with numbers. So my thought is, could this be like a tattoo that prisoners get in this Cratehead facility to identify them? There are definitely weird prison facilities with weird names. Like the first one that comes to mind is Sunspot. Sunspot is an alliance prison that is basically right next to this huge sun. So we know that prison facilities can have these unique names. My thought is that Cratehead is being referred to, is the name of a prison. Crate being that dragon creature that we saw in the first episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian. So my thought is Cratehead is being referred to as a prison. Bull Run, it's probably some sort of pass and crime syndicate. I also wondered if Cratehead could be a reference to a gang or a criminal syndicate. And that tattoo could signify this individual being a part of a gang or a criminal syndicate while he was incarcerated, because Cassian tells Skeen that he too was in a facility for 3 years, a youth center called Sippo. So again, my thought is that these two are understanding that they were both prisoners at one point, Cratehead being a reference to a prison facility. Could very well be a reference to a gang name or a syndicate name. And then we also see this tattoo here of, it almost looks like a person or a figure of a being, but also a hand. And Cassian says, "By the hand." So to go back to Cratehead really quickly, the only thing that I could come up with it being a reference to in Legends, Cratehead was one of 3 important relics kept by Tuskens in this cave in the MMORPG game Star Wars Galaxies, which came out in early 2000s, like 2002, 2003. So that's why I don't think it's really a reference to anything outside of or anything within Legends, I should say. But By the Hand is interesting, because By the Hand is this, again, could this be the name of a gang or a syndicate? Could this be a reference to the type of crime that he committed? Tattoos are, outside of media and movies and shows, tattoos were very much a part of criminality. That's how they were very well known for being a thing that criminals partook in. So, and a lot of times criminals would get tattoos to signify the types of crimes that they've committed. So could this be a reference to him being a thief? By the hand, he's taking part in robberies, and that's why he's got this hand, which would make sense because they're formulating this plan to rob an Imperial garrison. So having a thief with them would be very helpful, just like Cassian. Cassian is also a thief. We've learned he's stolen things in the past, just most recently the Starpath unit, which would make sense why he would know about this tattoo being a reference to By the Hand, this being a reference to me being a thief. And that's why I've been incarcerated. So that was my thought, is that these tattoos are representative of Skeen being incarcerated, being a thief, Cassian understanding that because he has also been imprisoned, he's also a thief, and that's why he was able to pick up on the meanings of these tattoos when everyone else in this group has no clue what they mean. But I like the inclusion of these tattoos and just these two having an understanding of what they mean. Had to take a screenshot of this. Just got back from a conference for work. During my conference, while I was with my colleagues were talking about milk and how several of them would drink milk during dinner, which is like so revolting to me. I am not a fan of milk at all. Milk grosses me out so much. So I thought it was funny how I think it was called bray milk or bray milk. And I'm assuming it's those like black sheep with 6 or 4 horns that they have. That's where they're getting the milk from. They are drinking that milk because essentially that's how they're surviving. That's the sustenance that they're receiving. And Skeen is like, hey, Cassian, aren't you going to drink that? And then Cassian just like chucks it into the fire, just like throws it away. Like, nah, I'm good. Just like, I would have done the same thing, Cassian. Milk is disgusting. What's with Star Wars and milk, by the way? We got white milk, bray milk, blue milk, green milk. Ugh, they're all gross. And I had to take this screenshot here because this item that we see Nemik give to Cassian. Nemik is that kind of like nerdy guy within the group. He gives Cassian this analog, so to speak, device that can be used for navigation. Immediately when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, that is 100% a Polaroid camera that they repurposed and used as a prop for this show and made it be this navigation device that they could be used. Dana Girl had mentioned to me how she thinks that this device is going to be used for them to navigate their escape when they're traveling through the Eye, that big sort of event on Aldhani. They're going to use this navigational device to be able to get off planet. But I like that it was clearly a Polaroid, and I like too that we hear Nemik talk about how, as he uses this device kind of as a segue into his conversation about the Empire and how repressive it is, and how the Empire controls everything, every aspect of our lives controlled under the Empire. And I appreciated learning Nemik's backstory and why he wants to fight the Empire. It differs from Skeen's reason, which we'll talk about later on. His thing is he can't abide with the Empire just completely stripping the galaxy of freedoms and the repression, iron grip that they have on the galaxy. He can't abide it. And so he wants to join the fight. I don't know if it's like this dude just wants to take down governments in general, if he's like a Star Wars version of an anarchist, or if he's just, I want to topple the Empire. I want to help bring about a new regime that's going to be more supportive of people's freedoms. But I like that we learn about that. I like that we get a sense of that. I mentioned this earlier, that character building that I think the series has done a great job of. And I want to know more about these characters and what is the drive that makes them want to fight the Empire. Because again, this is a high stakes heist, a high stakes operation that they're planning. Things can go wrong very quickly. They could lose their lives. They could be captured. They could be tortured. So there's a lot at stake here. What would drive someone to do this? Because as we come to find out, they will find out that Cassian is doing this for money. None of them are doing this for money. So I really want to know more about Cinta, Vel, Taramyn, the other individuals in the group. What's the impetus that has caused them to join this fight and to fight the Empire and to be a part of this burgeoning rebellion that is forming? I love too, as we're seeing Nemik kind of talk about his reasons for why he wants to fight. Skeen just being a crumb bum, just sitting there kind of like laughing at Nemik, saying like, yeah, this dude even has a manifesto, his reasons for why he wants to fight and why the Empire needs to be toppled. And then we come to find that Vel and Taramyn are still working on their plan, and they are lucky that Cassian is a part of their crew, because now the ship freighter that they're going to be using to steal the payroll from the garrison, it sounds like this this transport, I should say, is like on a rail, and then it could just take off and then go into hyperspace is my guess. But they have no clue how to essentially get that ship off the rails to be able to fly, because you have to input the weight that the cargo is on the ship. And so Taramyn is basically trying to make it seem like he's quizzing Cassian to give him the right answer. Taramyn has no clue what to do, nor does Vel. They have no clue. So they're very fortunate that Cassian is now a part of their crew. And Cassian is like, dude, what have I gotten myself into? You guys were a day away, 2 days away from this job, and you don't know how to do this? It's pretty simple. Thankfully, you got me. But now that I know this, I am 100% going to be the pilot, because I'm not putting my life on the line here. I'm not going to risk dying because you have no clue what to do. So Bull Run says it's like he's a true rebel, and they are like, we don't know rebels. So I'm assuming you're referring to Nemec. He's kind of, I don't want to say he's more of a true rebel, because they all have their own reasons for why they want to fight. And I don't want to diminish Skeen's reason or Nemec's reason, or if we find out Vel and Cinta and Taramyn's reasons for why they fight, I don't want to diminish them, because you could say the same thing about Mon Mothma. Her life, which we will talk about Mon Mothma, her life isn't, she didn't lose someone like Skeen did. She didn't have this terrible thing happen to her that pushes her to want to fight, but that doesn't make her any less of a rebel, because she's putting her life on the line just as much. So Cassian, you're referring to Cassian. Okay. One of the things I loved in this episode is we're seeing how smart and tactical Cassian is, and how adaptive he can be, and how quick on his feet he can be. And this scene right here just hammers that home, that he knows what to do here with the ship. They have no clue. They're lucky to have him a part of their crew. And then we get there more preparation being done for this heist, where Taramyn is saying to ask Cassian, do you know how a trooper walks? And Cassian's like, yeah, I know. And it kind of blows up in Taramyn's face, because they're walking as if they're going to be doing when they're doing the heist. And Cassian is saying Skeen and Taramyn need to swap in this formation, because Skeen is left-handed, Taramyn is right-handed, and they need to swap sides because of their handedness. And he even notices that if you look at Nemec, he's a righty, but he mostly shoots lefty. So again, just that perceptive nature of Cassian, how observant he is. I didn't notice that at all. Even during the scene, you can clearly see that Nemec is holding the gun like a lefty. Never once crossed my mind Cassian is perceptive, and the observation skills that he has are going to be very useful. And just again helping to paint that picture of why Cassian will eventually become a captain within Rebel Alliance intelligence services, because this dude is good. This dude knows what he's doing. He's a smart guy. This scene here, I took it as this TIE fighter is flying within this valley, had no intention of coming into this valley here to follow this river or the stream, but saw these people who they are probably going to assume are Aldani, and was like, yo, let me flex on these homies. Let me show them the true might of the Empire. So my thought was this TIE pilot is just straight up harassing these people that they think are citizens of Aldani, native Aldani, which again is just like, the Empire sucks. And here's another example of, yeah, these people are planning a heist, but this TIE pilot doesn't know that. They just think it's some group of Aldani doing whatever. Let me go bother them and harass them. And I love the sound editing here. The TIE engines sound so dope, and they sound so loud. You know, I was saying this to my wife Danielle, like, you know, imagine just being somewhere doing something with your friends, and then all of a sudden a helicopter or a plane just flew super close to the ground. You'd be like, yo, what the hell? What was that about? That would be kind of unsettling, not something that we encounter. So to see that here, my thought was, this is this TIE pilot just totally disrespecting these people, harassing them, because the Empire doesn't respect people. Right? They don't care about the people that they've displaced for this land. Couldn't care less. And that scene, I thought, exemplified that. And as they continue their preparation, Cassian has got what Skeen calls a sky kyber, that necklace that, well, yeah, I think Luthen gave it to him as a necklace. The blue kyber embedded with a sky stone. It's valuable item that Luthen gave to Cassian to hold on to as kind of like a down payment. And I didn't even think about this when Luthen gave Cassian that sky kyber. That very much is a parallel to Rogue One. In Rogue One, Jyn Erso receives a kyber crystal on a necklace from her mother, and we see that kyber crystal throughout Rogue One. And this to me was definitely a callback. I can't believe I didn't realize that when we first saw Cassian get that kyber. And then Skeen, not trusting Cassian, pulls a knife on him and is like, yo, look, why would this guy have this sky kyber that he says it'd be worth 30,000 when Luthen tells him it'd be worth at least 50? So our homeboy doesn't know the market value of goods. But he's right. Why would someone who is taking part in this big heist bring something extremely valuable with him? It doesn't make any sense at all. And then Cassian, being that adaptive, smart individual able to think on their feet, realizes, if I don't tell these people the truth, I could die. And so he tells them, yeah, I didn't share with you my full story, where I'm from, why I'm doing this, because I was paid. I was paid to join this group, and that's why I'm doing it. And I think Nemik makes a comment about, I can't remember exactly what he says to Cassian, but Cassian basically tells him, like, yeah, I'd be crazy to not do this for money. It's not a suicide mission, but this mission is extremely dangerous. Doing it for anything other than money is stupid. This kind of gets the respect of Skeen, who, all right, maybe I don't know everything about you, but at least now I know that you're being honest with us. At least I think you're being honest with us, and I can respect that. So Bull Run says it's like a symbol of hope because of the Rakatan lore about it. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Was like one of my favorite things when we saw that kyber crystal, or that sky kyber. I was so freaking pumped to get the Rakatan name drop there. And I released a video about it. For those of you that aren't aware, the Rakata and the Rakatan Infinite Empire were a big thing in Legends and Knights of the Old Republic, which is the video game with Revan. They were big in comics, like the Dawn of the Jedi comics, the game Star Wars The Old Republic, they're big in that game. And essentially the Rakata were these force-sensitive conquerors. Basically, they were viewed as like the first hyperspace traveling species. They were just going around the galaxy conquering planet after planet. Their technology was super powerful because it was basically infused with like the dark side of the Force. So they were these dark side wielding, conquering species. And we haven't gotten much of them in canon. There's been a couple of like references to Rakata in canon, but hearing Rakatan invaders that like straight up brought Rakata into canon, I was so pumped for that when we got that moment in Andor. I was like freaking jaw to the floor, like fist pumping, so happy. And I agree, it's, you know, symbol of hope, which that was a big thing in Rogue One, a big motif in Rogue One, and really a big motif in Star Wars in general, that idea of hope, but definitely in Rogue One. And yeah, I think you're right, Bull Run. I think that's a great point that you bring up. It's helping to instill that idea of hope. You know, this Sky Kyber was created to commemorate this victory against Reconnaissance invaders, this uprising against Reconnaissance invaders, to again hammer home that idea of hope, because hope is what these people need right now, because it is going to be a hard fought fight against the Empire. So Bull Run says it was like a light bulb lit off in my head when that lore drop happened. I think this hint to remake of KOTOR as canon is more likely. I had mentioned this in my video. I wondered if the mentioning of the Reconnaissance invaders, we know there's a KOTOR remake. Could this be like kind of paving the way for Revan, more Revan stuff, and Revan to possibly become canon, which would be so sick. I'm all about it. Give it to me, baby. That would be so dope. So now to go back to Skeen and Cassian, we learn that Skeen wants to fight the Empire because his brother was a farmer, a tree farmer. Empire came to his planet, took his farm. Skeen's brother had no recourse, no way of fighting, and so he was so distraught, he killed himself, went out onto a body of water, stuffed his clothing full of rocks, and drowned himself. Skeen tells Cassian, I hated the Empire before that happened. Now I can't even verbalize how I feel about the Empire. I have such disdain and such hatred for the Empire now, I can't even verbalize it. And Cassian tells him, I respect that. And basically these two are coming to a respectful, I don't want to say agreement, but they're respecting each other now, which is good because they're going to need that. They're going to have to work closely with each other once things get crazy in the upcoming heist that is, I'm assuming, coming next week. And as our crew is preparing, we also learn that our homeboy Lieutenant Gorn is preparing. Lieutenant Gorn is the individual that is their inside man. We find out, Vel tells Cassian that he's helping them because he lost a promotion. He lost the woman that he loved. And there was another reason, and I'm drawing a blank. But we can surmise that the woman that he loved, that he lost, was an Aldanian, because we see this scene here where the corporal that he's speaking to as Lieutenant Gorn is making all these preparations so that hopefully the rebel crew are going to have the least amount of resistance as possible. This corporal makes a mention about the eye, and when it happens, there's going to be Aldani there, citizens of Aldani there, and we're going to smell them. Could you imagine smelling thousands of them? And Lieutenant Gorn makes this face, like this face of disgust, and just says, "Yeah, oh yeah." So we could surmise that Lieutenant Gorn had a love that was from Aldani. Something probably happened to her. The Empire probably did something that caused him to no longer be in this relationship, or maybe cost that person their life. Which is why Lieutenant Gorn now wants to help the rebels and help them with their heist. So Bull Run says it's funny how they don't know Cassian was sort of part of the Confederate systems. I love how the guy said Donnies were just filthy, basically racist. Yeah. So two things to go back, to keep with what we're speaking about, the Aldanians. That's very, very Empire-like. The Empire was xenophobic. They were all about humans over every species, which is why as far as there are some agents of the Empire that are non-humans, but Thrawn is like the only non-human, especially higher up Imperial within the Imperial military. And then to your second point, yeah, so Cassian, and this was something I talked about in an interesting facts video about Cassian. Cassian fought against the Republic. He was never like a full-blown separatist, but he was fighting the Republic, and caught the CIS's attention. Worked with a rebel cell worked with a cell that fought against the Republic, which is cool. And as all this preparation is happening on Aldhani, as Cassian and the rebel crew are making their preparations, as Lieutenant Gorn is making their preparations. Really quickly, I just want to go back to Lieutenant Gorn before I forget this. I love, because we get in a scene where he goes down to like a boiler room or whatever it is, and he doesn't give a crap how the boiler room is, but he's using the excuse of the workers that they didn't like paint one of the boilers, or they didn't paint something down there. And he says, we've got an engineer coming from Coruscant. How this hasn't been happened yet? Oh, well, remember how I said we were only going to have a skeleton crew operating during the eye? Well, now we're going to have more people manned. And they're the two Imperial workers are basically saying, it would be great for morale if there's only a few of us as possible. We'll get it together as long as we can only just have a skeleton crew operating. And Lieutenant Gorn's like, fine, get it done, but I want it done day after next. And you see he's got that little smirk on his face. So yeah, thought that was really cool. Going back to Luthen, I had to take this screenshot because in the top right corner, right over here, we could see these two objects that look very much like holocrons. They're gigantic. I joked with Danielle and was like, what are those freaking 20 gigabyte holocrons? Jesus Christ, terabyte holocrons. They're freaking huge. But we do know holocrons could come in various sizes. The one thing that I get caught up on is if those are holocrons, we're on Coruscant. Luthen's gallery is on Coruscant. The Imperial Palace is on Coruscant. Vader and Sidious are on Coruscant. Sidious is going to be operating on Coruscant. Vader is going to be coming in and out on Coruscant. Wouldn't they sense that these holocrons are here? Wouldn't they get wind that these holocrons are here if in fact those are indeed holocrons? Because hasn't been confirmed that those are. Same thing with the armor that we saw in Luthen's gallery. They look very much like the Sith Stalker armor that we saw in The Force Unleashed, which let me pull up an image of that quickly. So this armor here, this is armor we saw in the front of Luthen's gallery. It looks very much like Sith Stalker armor. If it's supposed to be Sith Stalker armor, we don't know if it is. It hasn't been stated whether or not that's the case. How does the Empire not know this? How does Sidious and Vader not know that there is Sith armor and a Jedi holocron and a Sith holocron in this dude's gallery? Luthen is, if that's the case, Luthen is asking for trouble. But to go back to our homeboy in this episode, he's stressing because this heist, there's a lot at stake here. Things can go wrong very quickly. Our rebel crew could be captured, and Vel and Andor can both be traced back to Luthen. So he is nervous as hell. He's freaking out. He's asking, Leia is her name, do you have our to-go bags? Basically, like, when shit hits the fan and we need to go, do we have that ready to go on the Fondor, which is the name of his starship? And Clea is basically telling him, listen, we've spent a lot of time planning this out. By this time tomorrow, we're going to know. If it went bad, it went bad. If it goes well, it goes well. We will know one way or another next evening how this heist shakes out. But Luthen is not peeing his pants, but a couple drops of pee came out during the scene. Our homeboy is nervous, which I understand. Going back to the stakes we're seeing here, just the stakes are high. There's a lot at stake with this heist. A lot can go wrong, and we have to remember this is the Empire they're dealing with. So if even if some of these folks survive, if things get traced back to them, they'll be murdered by the Empire. So yeah, Luthen is nervous. And, it's interesting to see him nervous here, but then think about in episode 3, when he and Cassian are fighting the Corpos, that dude didn't, hardly sweating, hardly broke a sweat, couldn't care less about fighting because he's great at what he does. But now, at this point, the mission that Cassian is on, it's out of his hands. He is putting his faith in others to get the job done, and he doesn't know if they're going to get the job done. And it could be tied back to him, so that makes him nervous. So Bull Run mentions doesn't think that Vader or Palpatine would know if the Jedi, if there are Jedi and Sith holograms in Luthen's possession, but thinks that they could be fake. I could see them being fake. I could see them being fake relics that Luthen passes on as actual real holocrons, but then, well, probably for financial gain. A non-force sensitive can't open those holocrons anyway. But yeah, they look very much like Jedi and Sith holocrons. So I think they are. I think this is just my nerd ass nitpicking and being a weirdo. Speaking of Coruscant and what else is going on Coruscant, we get our homegirl Mon Mothma. And I love that pretty much everything in this woman's life is a charade. The work that she's doing in the Imperial Senate is essentially a charade. We know the Imperial Senate does nothing. Sidious is only keeping it around just to basically as a means to keep his grip on the galaxy. If it was actually doing good, the Senate would be destroyed right away. So it's basically a farce, the Senate. So it's a charade. Her marriage is a charade. How her interacting, we learn that she has new drivers regularly. She goes to the bank. It's all new people there. Everything is a charade. And Bull Run, I agree with you. Our homeboy, her husband is 100% not trustworthy. The dude is shady. Her husband, Perrin, in an interview that Tony Gilroy did with Vanity Fair, he mentions that Mon Mothma and Perrin were betrothed to one another. They had an arranged marriage and married at 16, right around when Mon Mothma joined the Senate or became a senator and got into politics. They clearly do not love each other, so their marriage is clearly a charade. Her child, Leda, appears to not like her and even says, hey, this activity you want to do today, you only want to do it basically to keep up appearances. It's just for you, no one else. So her family life sucks. And look at the distance between these three individuals here. I could tell you when I eat dinner with my family, we are not sitting that far apart. If I do eat dinner that far away from someone or eat a meal that far away from someone, it's because I want nothing to do with that person. I don't want to speak to them. Right? So visually, visually tells you all we need to know about this family. They are not a happy family. This marriage and this family is a charade. And especially publicly, they're probably putting up appearances publicly that they live at this happy life, but they clearly do not. It's not a happy marriage. And I shouldn't say I love because I wanted to jack this dude up, but just Leda is laying into Mon Mothma, basically saying, again, I don't want to do this activity. It's just for you. I want Dad to drive me. I don't want to go with you. And his face, this smug face and this smug look to Mon Mothma, like, yeah, I win here. She wants to go with me, not with you. Think about what we learned about this dude. He is, in the previous episode, is telling Mon Mothma that he's got this dinner party planned with Sly Moore, Administrator Sly Moore, who one of the few people that knows Sidious is a Sith and is a important cog in the Imperial machine. Ars Dangor, who is one of Sidious's ruling council members. So these are bad, very bad people. That would be like, if I use a real life analogy, that would be people saying during the Nazi party's reign, hey, heads up, big ups within the Nazi party are fun people to hang out with. That's the equivalent of what Perrin said to Mon Mothma. So this guy cannot be trusted. I do not trust Perrin as far as I can throw. I will only trust Perrin as far as I can throw him. He is not a trustworthy person. I think he is going to portray Mon Mothma one way or another. In that same interview that I was just referencing about that Tony Gilroy did with Vanity Fair, he mentions that he couldn't really divulge everything about Perrin and Mon Mothma's marriage because if he did, it would reveal some spoilers. So something is going to happen. I do not trust him. I think he's going to betray Mon Mothma in some way, even if it's indirectly. He's going to do something that's going to cause problems for Mon Mothma down the line. 100%. 100%. I love, first off, we get the scene of Mon Mothma and Perrin in their like Cadillac of speeders, their Rolls Royce of speeders. But just seeing Coruscant again, seeing Coruscant at night again, so dope. Loved it. And Perrin is kind of upset to some degree with Mon Mothma because he finds out that she's got this foundation. She never brought it up to him. And she basically tells Perrin, yeah, I didn't bring it up to you because it's a charitable organization. You would want no part of it. Which is that dig at Perrin that he's not going to do anything altruistic. He's not going to do anything charitable. He only cares about himself. So yeah, this dude, he sucks, basically. So Bull Run mentioned, I wonder how does she know Palpatine is Darth Sidious? So I'm assuming you're referring to Sly Moore. She was one of a handful of people that knew Sidious was a Sith Lord. So Sidious, Mas Amedda knew that he was a Sith Lord. I'm trying to think others. I'm guessing people within his Imperial, his ruling council probably knew he was a Sith. Probably some of the guards had an idea that he was a Sith, because I'm just thinking about in the current Darth Vader Greg Pak comic, we get scenes with Sidious and Vader, Mas Amedda, and Imperial guards. So I'm assuming some of his Imperial guards knew that he was a Sith. Who else might know? I'm trying to think. Vinay, who is like Vader's personal attendant in his castle. I wouldn't be surprised if Vinay knew Sidious was a Sith Lord. But very few people knew that Sidious was Sith, one of them being Sly Moore, who is apparently buddies with Mon Mothma's husband. So yeah, just not good. And going back to this scene, like I said, I was like so pumped that we got to see Coruscant at night. Super fun. And yeah, these two do not like each other. Again, look at the distance between these two. We got earlier in the scene, going back to this scene when, you know, they're in their house or their apartment, Perrin makes a comment like, oh, the driver, you know, he's going to be taking you. The driver. And she's like, Mon Mothma says, this person has a name. They are a person. Their name is Cloris. And then in this scene, he says, oh, what's the driver's name? Again, the driver's so beneath Perrin in Perrin's mind. He can't be bothered to remember this guy's name. Mon Mothma tells him, and Perrin tells Cloris, take the expressway home. So my thought is they're taking the mean streets here. They're taking the long route home. And after Mon Mothma said, yeah, my foundation is charitable work, you would have no interest in it, she kind of pissed him off. That would be my thought. And in his mind, he's like, I want out of this car as soon as possible. I want away from this woman. Take the expressway, get me home as quickly as possible. I don't know why else he would want the driver to have him take the expressway, but Perrin is no good. Perrin is bad news bears. I don't trust him. I think we should keep our eyes on him. He's going to do something shady. Sticking with shady people on Coruscant, Cyril, our homeboy Cyril, who apparently loves cereal, or maybe his mom makes him love cereal. This sad sack is hanging out, stuck on Coruscant in his mom's house, eating what looks like child's cereal. Looks like Cocoa Puffs in the Star Wars galaxy. Just a total sad sack because his mom, who, like, is she being a passive aggressive or just straight up aggressive and mean? Basically saying, like, yeah, you were an idiot. You got tossed from your job. Do you have any prospects lined up? Of course not. His mom is just super mean to him, super judgmental. And I have to say, even though we know Cyril is going to be an antagonist, I kind of felt bad. And this goes to how great this show is written, helping to establish the motives and the motivation for Cyril. His mom demeans him constantly. His mom makes him feel like he is not worthy. And she's saying, like, he's got to come back to Coruscant with his tail tucked between his legs. Of course, because you're not good, Cyril. You're not, nothing you've ever done is good. Of course you're coming back to Coruscant like this. So it would make sense that if we go back to episodes 1 through 3, it would make sense why this dude is like so by the books, wants to do things right, wants to make a good impression, because his mother demeans him and makes him feel like he's this small person. And she tells Cyril, like, now I've got to reach out to Uncle Harlow. I've got to call in this favor. He said that you shouldn't have been a cop. Police work is not for you. And he's going to help us out. And like, geez, Cyril, you suck. And he's just moping and being a sad sack. But he can't keep his mind off of Cassian. And my thought is his ties with Cassian right now this is going to be his way he can prove his mother wrong. This is how he's going to prove his mother wrong, because he's going to get back into this investigation. He's going to try to find Cassian. So I don't know if this is going to be, he's going to be seeking out Dedra Meero, who we'll talk about in a moment, Lieutenant Dedra Meero, or if she's going to be seeking out him. But I think that's how those two are going to wind up coming together, joining forces, and how Cyril is going to have an impact in the series going forward. Which brings us to Dedra Meero, excuse me. Her and her buddy, who looks like a walking goddamn skeleton. This dude right here, his name is Hearth. It's Heerth. So I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce his name. But like I said, walking goddamn zombie or skeleton, looks like the epitome, physical embodiment of the Empire. Just like those sunken cheeks, looks like an absolute creep. He and Dedra are burning the midnight oil. They can't stop working. And he's telling Dedra, your intuition, your hunches, I don't think they're wrong. I think you're onto something here. This stuff can't be coincidence. These rebellious acts that we're seeing, they can't be a coincidence. They have to be coordinated. If I were a rebel, I'd be doing the same thing that they're doing, so that it would seem like we're not coordinated, even though we are. Oh my God, yeah. So Bull Run, I love her. Her buddy is funny, so much of an Imperial. Yeah, this dude, like, to me, I got to take a screenshot of him next week. He looks like a walking, like, just a physical embodiment of the Empire. I don't think Dedra's gonna die. So Bull Run says, I think she might die. I think she's gonna survive. I think she is going to outlast some of these other Imperials, because we've spent more time with her than with Major Petrogas or with Blevin, who we'll talk about momentarily. I think she's gonna survive. I could maybe see Cyril dying, or I could also see him joining the Empire. But I think she's gonna survive. And so going back to Hearth, he's saying, trust your instincts, trust your gut, because I don't think it's worthwhile to explore this. I don't think you're wrong. And he mentions a few things. He mentions Fondor, the planet Fondor, who talked about this in breakdown for episode 1 and through 3. Luthen's ship is named Fondor. And Fondor is a planet that has orbital shipyards. And that planet had a big part in the Battlefront 2 game. So I thought that was cool. We get that drop. Kessel mentioned. Kessel, we heard the Spice Mines of Kessel in A New Hope. We see Kessel in the Clone Wars in season 7. We see Kessel in Solo when he makes the Kessel run. So that was cool. But then we also hear mention targeting consoles being, I'm assuming, stolen from Jakku. Obviously, Jakku playing a big role in the prequel trilogy or sequel trilogy, excuse me. Proton warheads from Base K. Don't know where Base K is. And again, I'm assuming proton warheads were stolen from that base. And then the Starpath unit that was stolen from Steerguard, that Cassian stole, that is the Imperial tech that he stole and was trying to sell to Luthen in episode 3. And again, here they're saying to Dedra, these instances, they can't be a coincidence. I think this is coordinated. Let's keep digging. I think we're going to find something. But just getting some of those drops were really cool at some of those planets and some of those places. And then bringing everything back to our boy Blevin. He's on Ferrix, making sure that the Imperial occupation of the planet, maybe not Imperial occupation, but that security is now under Imperial control, because obviously we know with Pre-Mor, they mess things up. And now the ISB needs to be responsible for security in this sector. So Bullrun says, could the incident on Kessel be a reference to Solo? Bro, that it would be so cool if it is. I'd have to see if the timelines line up, because this is 5 BBY and I can't remember when Solo happens. So I would have to look up when Solo takes place, but that would be so, that sort of stuff is so dope for me. So if that's a reference to Kessel, that would be so dope, and it would make a ton of sense, right? It would make sense that the Empire would have knowledge of what happened on Kessel, because remember in Solo, as right after they're stealing the oh my god, what's the name of the fuel? I'm drawing a blank on the fuel. Refine. They had to go to the Severine to refine it. I'm totally drawing a blank on the name of the fuel. But as they're leaving Kessel, they wound up encountering the Empire. So Rebels, Bullrun asks, isn't this show Rebels at the same time as this show? Potentially. First season of Rebels takes place in 5 to 4 BBY. So like the end of 5 BBY going into 4 BBY. So it could be that these shows are overlapping in season 1 of this series, which I would love. As the series progresses, there's absolutely going to be that overlap, because I think at this point they announced their thought. Coaxium, thank you, Bullrun. That's the name of the fuel. The thought is that the series is going to go for several seasons. They already know it's going to go for several seasons, so it's going to overlap with the events that happen in Rebels, and I'm all about that, because I love Star Wars Rebels, such a great show, and I would love if we got some of those characters to appear. Hera, Kanan, Ezra, especially now that Ezra's been officially cast. How dope would it be to see Ezra make an appearance? So the fact that we're getting some of these little tidbits, and now that you guys mention it, because Oscar says mention the uprising in Kessel, you guys might be onto something. That I didn't even think of that, but I think you guys might be onto something. I think that could have 100% been a reference to Solo, which would be dope. So to go back to our boy Blevin, he just confiscates a damn hotel for the Empire. Kind of ties into what we talked about with Skeen and why Skeen is fighting the Empire, right? The Empire just came in, took his brother's frickin' farm from them. And here the Empire is doing the same thing on Ferrix. They're confiscating this hotel. And Blevin doesn't even know if his subordinate, who's going to be running the show, doesn't even know if he wants to even use the hotel, but is might as well take it. It looks like it's a good building for a headquarters. Just shows how much the Empire sucks. And just they can do whatever they want with Very little repercussions, if any at all. And again, a nice tie-in to what Skeen mentioned. So I think that's a good stopping point. I'm so pumped that Oscar and Bullrun, you shared with me the little tidbit about Kessel, because I think you guys might be right. I think you might be onto something that is a nod to Solo. I'm loving this series, guys. It is spectacular. I love The Mandalorian. I love the cartoons that we've gotten so far. But some of those shows are not going to win awards for their dialogue and their character building. You know, they'll win awards for their effects, things like that. Andor, to me, is thriving without clinging to bits of lore, even though we are getting lore, clinging to the Jedi and the Sith, or those aspects of Star Wars that make us Star Wars fans freak out and nerd over. You could take Andor and put this in a modern day, you know, crime thriller, spy thriller set in Europe 2022 or America 2022, and it would be fantastic on AMC or HBO Max or whatever. And the fact that it's a Star Wars series just makes it so much baller. It is, I think at this point, without a doubt, in the show's best character development we've gotten in any Star Wars show. Best dialogue we've gotten in any Star Wars show. You know, I loved Kenobi, but there were moments where the dialogue felt a little clunky and the character building or the story development felt a little clunky. I haven't gotten that sense at all in Andor. I think this is some of the best drama we've gotten in a Star Wars show, and I'm here for it, guys. I'm loving it. I'm so pumped for next week and to see which I'm assuming is going to be the heist. I'm so excited to see that happen. Danny and I were joking, like, oh my god, is everything going to go right with the heist, and at the last minute something's going to go wrong? For any of you Breaking Bad fans in the season 4 heist episode, you know what I'm talking about. That could be something that happens, or is things just going to go off the rails and folks are going to get killed, or things are going to go sideways real quick? I'm worried for my boy Nemec. I'm worried that Nemec is gonna get murked during the heist, especially because now, like, of course that would happen. I'm like, I like Nemec. I like the character development we got from him this episode, and I think we're being set up for Nemec to be killed. But I'm very excited to see where this goes. So with all that said, I'm starving. I haven't eaten anything, guys. I gotta go eat some dang food. It was a good stop to end our live stream. Bull Run, Oscar, thank you so much for joining and for chatting with me. Anyone else that's watching and joining us, thank you so much. Like this video if you haven't. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. We'll be doing live streams each week for Andor. We're going to be doing live streams once Tales of the Jedi comes out. I'm going to be doing live streams of me playing some video games. I'm going to start doing either Jedi Fallen Order or KOTOR. KOTOR 2. One of those I'll be doing some live streams of. So keep a lookout for that. Keep a lookout for me to do some more live streams, for Danny Girl to join me. And then each week I'm dropping videos on all Star Wars stuff. And I love to hear what you guys have to say. Let me know down in the comments below, you know, what you thought of this episode, what you think of Andor. I love to hear from you guys and to get your thoughts and stuff. So, but absolutely share your thoughts with me down in the comments. And as I mentioned, like and subscribe to the channel, because that is always appreciated. Bull Run, I am so excited for the Acolyte. That was like when that big announcement dropped with all the shows that were announced. That was the show that I immediately was like, I'm Acolyte. That is what I'm the most excited for. I am so on all about the Acolyte dropping. Battlefront 2. Battlefront 2 was my jam for like years. I went from playing the old SWTOR, Star Wars The Old Republic, to playing Battlefront. I played that for a very long time. And then I started playing Halo Infinite. So maybe I can get back into Battlefront. That story was fun. That could be another option. But yeah, I think I'm going to start doing some more Star Wars video game streaming, because I think that would be cool to play some Star Wars games and have you guys join me and BS as we're playing. But with that said, guys, I gotta go eat. I gotta go freaking eat. My stomach is going nuts. Thank you guys again. May the Force be with you, and stay nerdy.